Peace. All praise and glory to the mighty Most High, our Creator, who's one God. Blessings to you, all the children that serve one God. Hope everybody's having a pleasant day. Okay. My name is John Carpenter. Okay. I'd like to welcome everybody to the channel. I talk about a lot of different topics on this channel. I talk mostly about religion. I talk mostly about government. I talk about issues that matter. I talk about the pedophilia. I talk about rape. I talk about corrupted officials. I share what's important and what matters because I see the evil out there in the world where most of us don't. There's a lot of people out there that don't believe that sin exists. This is because they were created sinners. They don't know what sin is because they don't know God. So, I started doing a lot of things. My awakening started with a flat earth. And I just didn't jump on board with flat earth. It took me quite a long time to get on board. In fact, it took probably about 2 months of watching continuous videos. I don't think that I would have ever bought into it except when I started reading the scriptures, and the scriptures themselves confirm that the plane of existence that we live on is a flat plane. It has been encompassed with bounds until the day and night come to an end. With this parable, when God says that here your waters shall come and no further shall they go, he's talking about a perimeter, an ice shelf, a 200-foot ice shelf that circumnavigates our planet, our little punch bowl that we live in. Governments have sold you that the Antarctic is one large ice shelf on the very tip of our globe that faces furthest away from the sun, and this is why you have this large ice shelf. That is inaccurate. We live on a flat plane of existence with an ice shelf that circumnavigates the plane. So when we're taught in school that Columbus sailed around the world, this is the way they want you to believe that he sailed, okay? Columbus didn't sail around the world, folks. He circumnavigated the world because our world has this ice shelf that circumnavigates it. And beyond this ice shelf is thousands and thousands of miles of ice. And then, and we do have people today at the other side of the ice shelf. They're scratching their heads trying to figure out how to get out of here. See, the soul is encapsulated inside of our flesh suits. We are trapped inside of our psyches. We are trapped underneath of a firmament. And if you're locked away in jail, man, that's the worst place to be. You're trapped all ways around. So I talk about a lot of truth. I talk about the pineal gland, the biology of our bodies, the spiritual regeneration that takes place. I explain to you about the metaphors and the parables and the riddles of the wise. You got to understand that this scripture here has been tampered with. If you ever come across a minister that's telling you that this book is a perfect manuscript, go back from Genesis 1 through Genesis to where we're at here, Leviticus, and start watching my shows, and you will clearly see that I am pointing out all the contradictions in the Bible to you that doesn't make sense. Okay? Folks, you can't, if something requires you to use common sense, then you have to go with logic. Okay? You got to give up faith and hope if you have the intellect to think something through and realize, hey, this doesn't make any sense. Well, what do I mean when I say this doesn't make any sense? I'm talking about things like Jesus holding the keys to death and Hades, when death and Hades are one realm. You got to ask yourself, why doesn't Jesus hold the keys to life? What is it about Jesus carrying the key? What is the key that Jesus carries? It's the cross that hangs around your neck. That is eternal damnation when you wear the cross. The cross is the crossroads. It is not the circle of life. You understand? You end your spiritual soul for eternal death when you lead yourself astray by falling into mankind and believing that mankind are going to save you. And I don't care how far back you go by. I don't care if you go to the Mayans. I don't care if you go to the Sumerians. I don't care if you go to the Anunnaki, the Inu. I don't care how far you go back. I don't care if you go back to the Hebrew God. I don't care about all the other gods. Every time I'm not even going to say it. I've lost it. Anyways, you go back to these Bibles. You go back as far as you can. You start to realize that this plane of existence, these gods on this plane of existence that are in power, they are used of the supreme creator, the spirit of life, the eternal being that has no beginning and has no end. And this is mind-boggling for the flesh to understand. You can't. In fact, you can't. The flesh can't understand it. You have got to give up your flesh, destroy your ego, and put it all behind you to learn the scriptures. The only way you can find discernment in the scriptures is to pray, hit your knees, and ask the Creator, the Spirit of Truth. You know, I combat against atheists all the time, but they only stick around for a short period of time. Number one, because I hit them with so much information that they've never heard before that it certainly makes them question what this reality construct is that we live in. This reality is the unreality, okay? The real reality of life is what's behind our physical world here. What drives this world here? The gears that put everything in place, how we see things in conscience, in our conscious mind. Other people say that we are the gods ourselves. We are the creator gods ourselves, and without us, no creation wouldn't exist. This is pretty silly to say when you've got the supreme being, the eternal creator, telling you that there are no other gods beside him. So if it's true that there are no other gods at all that exist, and that there is only one supreme being, one spirit, then it would only be true that the way he has broken all this reality down is he has made, when we talk to one another, it is God talking to himself, because it can only be one God. If there's only one God that exists, the supreme eternal spirit that exists, then there can't be a Satan. So then metaphorically, when it says that Satan slivered into the garden, he came into the garden, he is mankind, because mankind is created on the sixth day. What my channel teaches you with wisdom, I've deciphered and decoded the parable 13:18. I've deciphered a lot of parables that have been, because I hear different, because I seek every day. I'm listening every day. I'm listening to new content. I'm listening to Christian ministers that I don't serve Jesus Christ. Why do I listen to them? Because you got to understand that they bring you in with the piece of the truth, and then they lead you astray by getting you to worship another God, by placing a God beside God, by saying that Jesus Christ is God, by calling Jesus the creator. Jesus isn't the creator of this plane. He is not the supreme being. Jesus is something that was used, just like everything else. The Spirit of truth, the living God, says you are not to worship anything that moves on the face of the earth. So my question to you with this parable saying we are not to worship anything that moves on the face of the earth, then did Jesus move on the face of the earth? Yes, he did. Therefore, because Jesus moveth on the face of the earth, then he is creation. He was made. Okay? Psalms, I believe, 134 says that you are made lower than the angels. Well, we're the angels. So, and we're fallen angels. We're beasts, is what we are. And the parables are telling us that Jesus was made lower than us. And how can Jesus be sending his angels if Jesus was lower than the angels? Could this be what it meant when Jesus says that I do great things, but you will do greater things than I? So Jesus is God, and he's telling us that we can do greater things than him, God. Folks, the gospel is a ghost spell that has been placed over our eyes by the one that died on that cross and gave up his ghost. The ghost is the spirit of the dead. This channel is deep into the theology. Christian ministers will not stand up to me. I challenge everybody to a debate. Atheists, Christians, Hindus, I offer them all up, man. I am in rooms duking it out, putting on the gloves, uppercuts, right crosses, left hooks, all of it. I am duking it out with these people. I am challenging any Christian that wants to come on my platform and debate the scriptures with me, one God versus three gods. Let's get it on. Come on, show me your stuff. Okay? I will squash you the same way that Rap the News used to squash anybody who came up and challenged him. It's just that simple. A lie can't stand anywhere near the truth, man. It flees. This is why nobody will come into the room. I mean, it's funny that me as a Gentile, I'm a Gentile, folks. You understand that? We are Gentiles, okay? Both black and white people were born into this plane of existence. You are a Gentile, okay? If you're a Hamite, you're a Gentile. If you're from the bloodline of Japheth, you're a Gentile, okay? If you're from the bloodline of Shem, then you're in this case you're God's chosen children. Understand that there's a verse that says 1/3 of the angels, 1/3 fell from heaven, right? 1/3 of the angels fell from heaven, and then it says 2/3 of God's children will perish to lack of knowledge, the knowledge that I share. Okay? See, the reason why is I learned from a man who called himself a Leviticus priest, and he was from the house of Levi. Okay, and then we have other people that say that they're from the house of Judah. But my whole point here about both of these is 1/3 is 33.3333, and 2/3 is 66.6666. Okay? When you add these together, you get what? 100%, right? So, the gods, 2/3 of God's children, and this is just a number because it has to deal with 666. Okay? As the same of this. Okay? 33, 3 plus 3 is 6. Okay? 66, 33 and 6, 66. Folks, once you understand the system that we live in, then it becomes very clear about the 666 that we live in, this world, this reality, this 666 reality that we live in. You stick around on this channel long enough, and you take, because it takes a while for you to hear the information, folks. Okay? It's foreign to you, and sadly, the jinn that is in you, the jinn, which is Gentile. Okay? Gentile. Are Gentiled in flesh. That's us. Okay? Gentile created in Genesis 1, 25, 26, and 27. The beast is created here. This is the serpent in 26 and 27, and the beast is here in Genesis 1:25. When you add all these parables together, it comes to 78. 7 plus 8 is 15, and 1 plus 5 is 6. So I have a lot of content on my channel that goes deep into 666, folks. So what I'm sharing with you here is, it's nothing, man. You've got to watch my content. You can't watch this content and gather any information at all unless you come into this room and pour out all your knowledge, everything you've ever learned in your life. You've got to put it all to the side, and you got to listen to all of the message, folks. You can't get a message in 10 minutes when I have an hour and a half message, and I'm bringing you stories to the Bible that make sense. The more you put into this truth, the more God's going to reveal to you. Don't you want to know the truth? I mean, folks, it's quite an amazing thing to know that people are out there and that they're the walking dead. They're zombies. They're drug addicts. They're alcoholics. They're pedophiles. They're rapists. They're corrupted officials. They're gamblers. They're everything that God says not to do, right? You have this supreme being that's saying, hey, don't do this, okay? Follow my instructions and it will serve you well, okay? And then you got another one that's saying, hey, man, I got your back covered. You just go ahead, we know that you can't stop sinning. That's all bullshit. You can stop sinning. I stopped sinning, okay? But it's hard. It takes a true walk. You got to turn it over to the Spirit of God. It has to be to the Spirit of God, to His glory and His glory alone, only. All things have to be given to the Creator. Okay? So let's go ahead and jump into this lesson here. We're at Leviticus 11. Okay? This isn't really too much of an exciting lesson. But let's jump in and get it. The Lord said to Moses and Aaron, remember, folks, Moses and Aaron. What I have a problem with in all of this is it was just a few chapters back that Aaron said, or the people, the Israelites said to Aaron, build us a god, make us a god. And all Aaron could substantiate from that is bring me all your gold. Now, I just read to you in the last lesson that Aaron's sons offered an unauthorized fire sacrifice, and the Lord came up and He destroyed both of them. I don't know what a fire sacrifice is. Oh, they put it in one of those, that little thing on a chain. They put incense and stuff in it, and they swing that little thing inside of the churches and stuff, and it has smoke that comes out of it. Okay? So I find it quite disturbing that the Creator would land Aaron as a high priest after him taking the gold when Moses was up on the mountain for 40 days and comes back down, and they're all singing and dancing and yahooing around a golden calf. That doesn't sound right to me. Okay, so I have a problem with this. Not that Aaron wasn't a great priest. What I have a problem with is I don't believe that Aaron did it. Come on, folks. This Bible is showing us that every prophet of God has done shitty things and they've fallen into wealth other than Joseph. Joseph, this far, is the only one who didn't do anything with intent, didn't tell anybody to lie, didn't say, hey, do this, do that. He didn't do any of that, man. Aaron, or Jacob, Isaac, Abraham, all of them did shady things in the Bible as it's written. And again, this is why I say don't focus on the stories of the Bible. Focus on the message of the Bible. The message that's coming in the Bible is two creation stories. You got the supreme creator that created everything, and then you got the something that was used of the supreme creator, the Gentile. Okay? Say to the Israelites, of all the animals that live in the land, these are the ones you may eat. You may eat any animal with a divided hoof, and that chews the cud. You know, let me remember, folks, I don't believe in sacrifice. I think it's a lie. Okay? I think it's bullshit. Okay? I don't think that it's right to slice an animal's throat over and sprinkle its blood and dip it on people's ears and all of that. What's the message? It's a blood sacrifice. That's what I'm getting from the message. It doesn't matter. Okay. There are some that only chew the cud or only have a divided hoof, but you must not eat them. The camel, though it chews its cud, does not have a divided hoof. It is ceremonial unclean for you. The hyrax, which is kind of like a rat, and what's really funny about this is they say, go Google what a hyrax is, and they say that a hyrax is the family of an elephant. It's this little fucking prairie dog, and they're saying that it comes from an elephant. These people are wacky. They say anything, man. The hyrax, though it chews the cud, does not have a divided hoof. It is unclean for you. The rabbit, though it chews its cud, does not have a divided hoof. It is unclean for you. And the pig, though it has a divided hoof, does not chew its cud. It is unclean for you. You must not eat their meat or touch the carcasses. They are unclean for you. Touch the carcasses. God says not to touch dead meat. So the real question to ask yourself is, how can you stuff a piece of meat in your mouth that's been sliced up into a steak and that not be dead and be clean? Because in the garden, it never once said, when God created all this stuff and he gave if you go back to Genesis, well, I don't know exactly which one it is, but he goes in the garden and he says that all fruits are, I think it's Genesis 1:11, and he creates the trees, the vegetation, all fruit-bearing seeds, and he gives it to Adam and Eve, and he says, this food shall be yours as meat. Okay, the food that was given in the garden, everything that was from the tree, it didn't die. You understand? Continual blooms, continual fruit. The minute the tree was eaten from of knowledge of good and evil, then everything began to die and decay. They were cast out into a world that dies and decays. Adam and Eve were in a plane of existence where nothing died. So you don't eat rabbits, you don't eat cows, you don't eat beef or any other thing like that. In the garden, Adam and Eve were cast out into a world where sacrifice took place. Something that was created already. This is what Satan doesn't want you to know, that it was already created. They're unclean for you. Of all the creatures living in the water of the sea and the streams, you may eat any that have fins and scales, whether along all the swarming things or among all the living creatures in the water, you are to regard as unclean. And since you are to regard them as unclean, you must not eat their meat. You must regard their carcasses as unclean. Anything that is living in the water that does not have fins and scales is to be regarded as unclean for you. These are the birds you are to regard as unclean and not to eat because they are unclean: the eagle, the vulture, the black vulture, the red kite, and any kind of black kite, any kind of raven, the horned owl, the screech owl, the gull, any kind of hawk, the little owl, the cormorant, the great owl, the white owl, the desert owl, the osprey, the stork, any kind of heron, the hoopie, and the bat. That's a lot of birds that you're not allowed to eat from. And you know what? They're damn near all extinct. All of these are extinct. Why? Because some frickin' nutbag hunter wants to put an eagle up on his mantle. He wants to mount it to a wall. Isn't that a beautiful mount? Oh, how wonderful. Yeah, I shot that back down in 1979, man. I was in the Bahamas. Yeah. Okay. All flying insects that walk on all fours are to be regarded as unclean for you. I couldn't even consider eating an insect. There are, however, some flying insects that walk on all fours that you may eat. Those that have jointed legs for hopping on the ground. Of these you may eat any kind of locust, katydid, cricket, or grasshopper. You know, and what happened? One of the plagues that was put on the Egyptians was being overran with locusts. And here, God is saying that it's all right to eat the locusts. Hell, I would think that everybody in Egypt at that time with all the locusts would have been having a pan fry, man. Look at this. Manna from heaven, locusts. Okay, but all other flying insects that have 4 legs you are to regard as unclean. You will make yourself unclean by these. Whoever touches their carcasses will be unclean until evening. So that means after the evening you're clean. What if you touch them after evening sets? Are you still clean? Whoever touches one of their carcasses must wash their clothes, and they will be unclean until evening. Whoever picks up one of their carcasses must wash their clothes, and they will be unclean until evening. Every animal that does not have a divided hoof or does not chew the cud is unclean for you. Whoever touches their carcasses of them will be unclean. Of all the animals that walk on all fours, those that walk on their paws are unclean for you. Whoever touches their carcasses will be unclean until evening. Anyone who picks up their carcass must wash their clothes, and they will be unclean until evening. These animals are unclean for you. All of the animals that move along the ground, these are unclean for you. The weasel, the rat, which America is a nation of weasels and rats, and any kind of great lizard, the wall lizard, the gecko, the monitor lizard, the skink, and the chameleon. Of all these that move along the ground, these are the unclean for you. Whoever touches them when they are dead will be unclean until evening. When one of them dies and falls on something, that article, whatever it is used, will be unclean, whether it is made of wood, clothes, hide, or sackcloth. Put it in water, it will be unclean until evening. Then it will be unclean. Okay, that last line that I read wasn't cut into water. It was put in the water. it will be unclean until evening, and then it will be clean. It'll be unclean until evening, and then it will be clean, I believe. Might have said unclean twice. If one of them falls into a clay pot, everything in it will be unclean, and you must break the pot. Any food that you are allowed to eat that has come into contact with the water from such a pot is unclean, and any liquid that is drunk from such pot is unclean. Anything that one of their carcasses falls on becomes unclean. An oven or pot must be broken up. They are unclean, and you are to regard them as unclean. A spring, however, or a cistern for collecting water remains clean. But anyone who touches one of these carcasses is unclean. If a carcass falls on any seed that are to be planted, they remain clean. But if water has been put on the seed and a carcass falls on it, it will be unclean for you. If an animal that you are allowed to eat dies, anyone who touches its carcass will be unclean until evening. Anyone who eats some of the carcass must wash their clothes, and they will be unclean till evening. Anyone who picks up the carcass must wash their clothes, and they will be unclean until evening. Every creature that moves along the ground is to be regarded as clean. It is not to be eaten. Now, I don't understand that. It's to be regarded as clean, but it is not to be eaten. Every creature that moves along the ground is to be regarded as clean. Every creature, everyone, is to be regarded as clean. It is not to be eaten. Every creature is not to be eaten. Every creature is not to be eaten. It doesn't make sense. I just read to you in the first part that God was giving you, is telling you all the differences of the animals that you could eat. Animals that eat the cud and have a split hoof. Now you're being told every creature that moves along the ground is regarded as clean, but it is not to be eaten. You are not to eat any creature that moves along the ground. Whether it moves on its belly or it walks on all fours or many feet, it is unclean. Do not defile yourself by any of these creatures. Do not make for yourself unclean by means of them, or made unclean by them. Folks, I just read to you earlier. I just told you earlier, it's telling you about the animals that you can and can't eat. Animals that you can eat. Those that chew the cud and have split hoofs. And then it turns right around and says that you're not to eat every creature that moves along. That's everything, folks. Every creature. Not every creature except. There's no except there, man. It's every creature. And this is what I do. I point out the contradictions. If you can't see that, sorry, you're living in a delusion. Okay, I am the Lord your God. Consecrate yourselves and be holy. Do not make yourselves unclean by any creature that moves along the ground. Again, any creature. Any would mean all. Okay? I am the Lord who brought you up out of Egypt to be your God. Therefore be holy, because I am holy. These are the regulations concerning animals, birds, and everything that moves about in the waters, and everything that moves along the ground. You must distinguish between the clean and the unclean and clean, between living creatures that may be eaten and those that may not be eaten. So what do you think the difference is between these clean and unclean animals? Some animals are living, some animals are as the dead, the same that are those that are created on the sixth day of creation. The sixth day of creation has everything to do with this plane of existence that we're on here. Okay? This plane of existence is death, folks. You're born into a world of death. You must, in order to move into life, you must be born into death, which means that this would be a continuum. Hinduism believes that in reincarnation. So, but the Bible doesn't say anything thus far about any kind of reincarnation. It does talk about predestination, and that would mean that there are people that are predestined for hell. They were created for hell. They're going back to hell. Nothing that they can do can change their stripes, man. If you're gay and you're allowing another man's seed inside of the backside of your rear end to flow in your feces, then you're mental, and so is anybody who defends them. If you are defending this kind of behavior, if you're a parent and you have a child that engages this kind of behavior, and you love your child and you support your child, you are in error. You need to correct your child. You need to tell them that it's an abomination, that it's wrong, and that there will be hell to pay. Hell to pay for your acts. Okay? You are transgressing against the Supreme Creator. He has these commandments. He has these laws. He says that you're not to engage with these abominating acts. If you engage with them, then there's a price. Just like if you go out and you rob a bank here on this plane of existence and you get caught, you go to jail. You pay the price for robbing that bank. So is the same when you transgress God's law. When you fornicate, when you lie, you cheat, you drink, you pop pills, you smoke dope, you chase after women, you're corrupted, you commit acts of sodomy, you're pedophiles, you're rapists, you're every dirty thing under the sun, and then you believe in an idol. An idol, a man who is an idol created on the sixth day of creation to save you from your souls. My channel has deciphered who 666 is. Anyone who turns from this information, this beautiful spiritual prosperity, this wealth of spirituality, you will be left behind. You will not find peace ever. Okay? You'll be in complete turmoil. Your internal, your total existence. You think it's bad here? Wait until the Creator reveals to you Himself and you're standing there unclothed, buck-ass naked, because you refused to hear the truth. All praise and glory to the mighty Most High, our Creator who is one God. Shabbat Shalom. All praise and glory to all those children alike that serve the living God, the eternal, no beginning, no ending, always present, omnipotent force that moves everything in place. There's only one. May you find Him. This is White Raptor News Ministries. Peace.